Introducing the new Call of Duty Event Pass, featuring Squid Game. Play the Squid Game Event Pass to earn new rewards. Compete in all modes and earn player XP to level up through the Event Pass.
My favourite show of all time is Mr. Robot, and one of the main plot threads in that is there's a group of anarchist, anti-capitalist hackers called F Society that are basically trying to destroy the biggest corporate influence on the global economy. Their main goal is to basically erase people's debts so they're not enslaved by like banks and corporations anymore. The show isn't just about that, but F Society are like this anonymous style like hacker group, and they become like really popular for doing this. But in season 4 of the show, kind of like a meta commentary on everything, there is a poster and just advertisements for an NBC show, which is like a fictionalized version of F Society within the show. And there's like masks you can buy. And essentially what's happened is this anti-capitalist revolution has actually been commodified and sold back to people as this new TV show. And it's a very nice commentary generally on how often anti-capitalist anything is often commodified. It could be that picture of, you know, Che Guevara on the t-shirts, but what we see more recently is, in terms of media, anti-capitalist media gets appropriated by people who are generally pro-capitalist, and they completely miss the message. You have something like, I wouldn't say it's the most anti-capitalist thing ever, but The Wolf of Wall Street, or I guess something more like American Psycho, Blade Runner 2049, things that have this like anti-capitalist theme, but then get appropriated by like capitalist right-wing movements. But generally you can just point at that and be like, well, that's people not understanding the message in their own like interpretation. But what we're seeing with Squid Game Season 2 is this taken to the next level. Like, sure, some of you might say, well, Star Wars had this like anti-imperialist message and then became like insanely commodified through things like merch. But I would say the point of Star Wars isn't generally like a political message. Sure, it's a vehicle for George Lucas's own politics, especially the prequel trilogy, but I wouldn't say it's as bizarre as Squid Game Season 2. Squid Game is literally just spawned by one guy's experience growing up in the capitalist hellscape of South Korea, then using that to make a show which is clearly an allegory for just existing in modern capitalism, which he said himself as well during the press tour for season 1. And now it's become a franchise. Not only is it being sold in just weird ways, it's also collabing with some of the worst corporations in the world to push this Squid Game merch. So essentially what has happened is a very popular critique of capitalism globally and in South Korea has been appropriated by giant corporations and sold back to us, completely stripping it of its message. Because now most people see Squid Game as the guards, as the red light, green light doll, and most people don't actually understand the message of this at all, because Squid Game has just been turned into a massive corporate brand, and it's pretty clear the creator is sick of it as well. So today what I wanted to do was just talk about the creator's own comments more, and then contrast that to some of the worst advertising and collabs I've seen with Squid Game, because I've been playing Call of Duty this year. The Squid Game collab is one of the most insane things I've ever seen. And then the worst one I saw was Just Eat did a collab with Squid Game, which just like blows my mind, taking like the gig economy and putting a Squid Game coat on it and making that seem like cool and good. Not that it's probably like the most dystopian thing I've seen in relation to Squid Game. Take something that is a critique of things linked to like the gig economy and use it to sell the gig economy to people. It's just really, really gross and bizarre. And I just do not think that any left-wing anti-capitalist works of art or fiction has been appropriated in this manner. Star Wars is the only other example. And again, I don't think it even compares to Squid Game. All of that coming up for you today. Please consider checking out my social media. I just made my gaming Instagram, and thanks so much to all of you that have already followed it, but please go follow that. I am passionate about posting more gaming content. Check out obviously my travel Instagram, my personal Instagram, and consider becoming a patron if you want to support my work. And let's get more into the video. So I was thinking about how to structure this video, and I know most people would probably just want to see the adverts first, but I think without the context of what the creator Hwang Dong-yuk has said about the politics of Squid Game, it's just not going to make my point as clear. So I covered this back in 2021. So this is what he said around season 1 of Squid Game, and then I'm going to read you some more quotes about what he said with the release of season 2 of Squid Game. So Squid Game's creator in The Guardian: "I'm not that rich. It's not like Netflix paid me a bonus. Seems unfair. After all, the 50-year-old South Korean filmmaker has made hundreds of millions for his paymasters. Squid Game earlier this month overtook Bridgerton as the most successful Netflix show ever. Perhaps Hwang should have negotiated a performance-related clause, particularly as creating, writing, and directing it caused him so much stress that he lost 6 teeth in the process. The idea for Squid Game came out of Hwang's own family situation in 2009 after the financial crisis. I was very financially straitened because my mother retired from the company she was working for. There was a film I was working on, but we failed to get finance, so I couldn't work for about a year. We had to take out loans, my mother, myself, and my grandmother. Why did Hwang create such a horrifyingly brutal contest that holds human life so cheap?" He says, "Because the show is motivated by a simple idea," he says. "We are fighting for our lives in very unequal circumstances." Are you making a profound point about capitalism? Hwang says, "It's not profound. It's very simple. I do believe that overall the global economic order is unequal and that all around 90% of the people believe that it's unfair. During the pandemic, poorer countries can't get their people vaxxed. They're contracting viruses on the street and even dying. So I did try to convey a message about modern capitalism. As I said, it's not profound." But isn't there a contradiction in that without money from an international corporation, your critique of global capitalism would have never been seen? Hwang laughs at me again and says, "Oh, The Guardian asking profound questions. Well, Netflix is a global corporation, but I don't think it is aggravating inequalities. I don't think there's a contradiction." But talking about like modern global capitalism, he also says, "I wanted to create something that would resonate, not just for Korean people, but globally. This was my dream. In this life and death struggle, social norms are torn away and the contestants are trapped in a war of all against all, in which human life is nasty, brutish, and short. We are living in a Squid Game world," Hwang says. So I don't want to dwell too much on the politics of like the first season of Squid Game, but yeah, it's pretty clear it's an allegory for just modern day capitalism, and the Squid Game is just like all of us under capitalism. And loads of people obviously missed the point at the time, but it's a pretty apparent point. The creator says it. I don't think it's like the most nuanced thing I've ever seen, and I don't think it takes loads of critical analysis to see this. And maybe part of the reason it was so globally popular is because maybe even at a subconscious level, loads of people could relate to the show. Now, I haven't seen season 2 of the show. I don't know if it does a 180 and starts saying capitalism is good, please let's do all these collabs with like the gig economy. But I've talked to people who finished it, they say like it doesn't go back on the message. So let's just say that he feels the same about season 2. It's another allegory and he's just making it bigger. Is it better? Seems like everyone's pretty divided on it. I haven't, like I said, watched it myself yet. But because I already knew what he said about it, that's why when I start seeing the marketing, I'm like, what the hell is actually happening with this franchise? And like he even addressed, Netflix is this giant corporation, and because this giant corporation owns this IP, they're just gonna do what they want with it. But before we talk about, the advertising, let's talk about what he said about season 2, which, he's a very honest guy. So Variety, Jennifer Mass wrote, "How Squid Game became a business empire for Netflix. Hwang said, I had no intention of doing a second season because the overall process of writing, producing, and directing was so challenging. I didn't think to do another one. The writer-producer famously claims to have lost 8 or 9 teeth during production on the first season due to stress. Hwang says he only went through a second season, which has turned into a season 3 as well, because the immense success of season 1 gave me the courage and motivation to add more. Once he's done with post-production work on season 3, he is ready for a long break from the cutthroat and compelling game that sprang from his imagination. I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired. In a way, I have to say I'm so sick of Squid Game. I'm so sick of my life making something, promoting something, so I'm not thinking about my next project right now. I'm just thinking about going to some remote island and having my own free time without any phone calls from Netflix. Hwang is quick to clarify, not the Squid Game island. So not that I can totally like relate to Hwang there. I haven't had this IP which has become like insanely successful that I then like keep working on as it becomes more commodified and I'm trying to sell this more. He's obviously like earned his bag and I hope he enjoys his break from making this, you know, great show and everything. At the same time, I'm sure a lot of people who have started monetizing their art can relate to what he's saying there and how you can just get burnt out when you thought you loved something. So I've spoken about even with my YouTube videos, I wouldn't consider them art because they're not, but at the same time, YouTube was my passion for a long time. I did my first like 3.5 years on YouTube making zero money, not getting many views, not having many subs. I still uploaded like twice a week, every single week, just because I was so passionate about it. But when you start commodifying it yourself, when, you know, this is my full-time job, you become a bit more cynical about everything because the passion is still there, but now you're worried about your passion fitting in with the commodification. Like, how do I keep making more money? How do I keep making enough money to live my life off my passion? And I can totally understand if your like passion project becomes this global brand, how absolutely sick you would be of it, especially when you are seeing it in real time be distorted by this corporation to just completely wash away the message of what you have made. Now, I spoke in my end of year wrap-up video, I'm actually writing a book and I'm not going to like spoil any of it, but it's inspired by things like, you know, Gaza in 2021, the Irish Revolution and everything. And the thought of like getting something like that adapted by a corporation who then make it into a brand, and then let's say, I don't know, the Irish government start using the aesthetics of this work for their own promotion, or like the Israeli government, and you just having to watch that while they completely both whitewash like what you said and use it to promote like the system that you hate, it must be just absolutely maddening. And I'm sure when he looks back on it, he might just be so like angry about what happened to this, despite the fact it probably has made him with season 2 economically more comfortable in a way that season 1 didn't. But yeah, you guys probably have watched Squid Game season 1 at least. You might have watched Squid Game season 2. The allegory isn't that subtle. You've heard me read the director's own words. So now let's look at the most bizarre advertising. Now, obviously I've spoke about, you know, the Call of Duty stuff, but I'll leave that till last. So my sister actually sent me this, like the bizarre insane marketing around Young Hee, the red light, green light doll, is so bizarre. Like, she has become, along with the guards, this like giant mascot for Squid Game. And just like seeing the excess and how much money is spent on these crazy stunts. Like, look at these guards like flying in on like these drones. Like, so crazy to me that this is all for a show that is fundamentally anti-capitalist. And then here is the worst one. Now, I'm not going to play you the audio because I think it's using Squid Game original soundtrack, but I'm just going to show you it. So Just Eat is a company in the UK, like Uber Eats, like DoorDash, or whatever equivalent if you're, you know, in Southeast Asia, like Grab or something. And here in the video, one of their drivers is driving with a bunch of Squid Game guards while people are waiting for the food. Young Hee is, of course, there watching them and kind of playing like red light, green light. They're all wearing the Squid Game jumpsuits and just waiting for their lovely food delivered by someone working the gig economy. And then, I don't know, Young Hee is pleased. But just like, that is just the most bizarre crossover. Like, are more people ordering Just Eat because of Squid Game? Like, maybe subconsciously as like, you know, mental warfare. This works in subtly influencing people who might be binging Squid Game to order Just Eat. But just the fact that they can take something that criticizes so directly this horrible system, including things like debt, and use it to promote this economic model, which is just like a race to the bottom. And of course, as we all know with the gig economy, it was always framed as, oh, if you have a bit of free time, just do this on the side and you make a little bit more money for Uber or Uber Eats. And now, of course, what has happened is it's just so many people working these jobs, so many people doing this full time, so many people getting into debt to get their vehicles or pay for petrol. And we all know these people often have to work obscene hours to make just a pretty standard paycheck. And we all know Squid Game is criticising this race to the bottom where we're all competing with each other, because that's another element of the gig economy. You're all fighting against each other to make as much money as possible. When you are an Uber driver or you are a delivery driver, you are racing against each other to make as much money as possible in this short amount of time. It's obviously like a perfect economy to compare to the Squid Game itself. And that's where we are in late stage capitalism. That is probably like the most gross one, because it is directly related to a job that really only exists in this economic system. We have other weird stuff like Puma. I don't know what Americans call it. It could be like a Nike thing. But obviously the sports brand, they're advertising like Squid Game jumpsuits for like 70 quid. And again, like obviously Puma have been taken off things like the BDS list because they did make the Israeli football kits. But so many of these fashion brands are built on either developing countries' labour or actual sweatshops. Again, sweatshops making Squid Game outfits that sell for £75 at one of the biggest sporting brands is just so crazy to me. Now, one thing that obviously I have been exposed to more because I actually play Call of Duty, and I know there's hypocrisy in a left-wing person enjoying like US military propaganda. I made a whole video about this, but with that, and knowing like Activision Blizzard being like one of the worst gaming companies, knowing how it's treated its employees, knowing how actual members of the CIA who worked for Donald Trump and actual members of like Homeland Security who worked for George Bush have like worked at high levels of this company. And then obviously the US military is a key arm of perpetuating just like global economic inequality, and especially in Korea as well, like how many US troops are occupying Korea right now, part of upholding this economic system. And then in Call of Duty, it's just overrun with Squid Game. Like the whole multiplayer now is designed around Squid Game. So if you guys don't play Call of Duty, maybe you play other shooters, they basically introduced a Squid Game season. So everything you do in the game is now contributing to you unlocking Squid Game stuff. And everyone got an operator, meaning a character for multiplayer, wearing the Squid Game jumpsuit. I've played it enough, I've unlocked another operator wearing it. And now recently they've introduced the guards as paid operators, and Young Hee is also an operator, which is just insane. Even taking out the criticisms of capitalism and the contradictions of it being in Call of Duty, just this massive character running around Call of Duty from Squid Game just is everything that's wrong with modern gaming as well. Like, why do I fucking want this thing in my military shooter? Call of Duty has just turned to absolute shit in this regard. In the game as well, you also have the red light, green light kill streak, which I can admit is actually quite cool. Basically what happens is once you activate it, Young Hee sings her little song, and once she stops, everyone on the other team has to stop moving or they get killed by your kill streak and you get the kills. That's pretty cool. I won't deny that. I don't think it needs to be Squid Game to achieve that. And then you can actually play red light, green light as a separate mode. And again, it is fun in some ways. It is like a fun collaboration, but think about what that all does. What does all of this do to the actual message of the show? Completely strips the message away. What do people think of when they think of Squid Game now? Do they think of the characters? Do they think of the story? Do they think of the politics? Do they think of anything but this stupid fucking doll mascot running around Call of Duty and hitting the griddy or something? That's all they're going to think about, because it's just a franchise, and although it has mass exposure and maybe people will go and watch it and then they'll like the politics or whatever, most people are just going to like the aesthetics and the game show element and stick it on Netflix while they're maybe playing Call of Duty on the side. So this mass marketing for Squid Game achieves what Netflix want it to achieve. It makes it this oversaturated massive franchise, but of course it has taken something that critiques this system and just making it a part of this system. And things like Mr. Robot obviously criticised that. Plenty of things have criticised it, but I've just never seen it to this level. I've never seen something that goes after capitalism with the creator saying it does, only for it to be appropriated by capitalism to such an insane extent that you can just buy insanely expensive merch. Like, companies in the gig economy are using the aesthetics of the Squid Game as a good thing to promote themselves, and then the biggest corporation in gaming, and obviously Microsoft owns them as well, is also using this now to promote their giant franchise in a studio that has historically treated its workers like shit. I really wouldn't be surprised if Hwang just ultimately ends up hating Squid Game for what it has come to represent. It doesn't represent anything from his original vision. It's just become some insane franchise. like the content of it was Marvel or something. That's why it's so crazy to me. It's being advertised like a Marvel thing while the content is anything but a Marvel thing. So that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think, and also let me know if you guys have any other examples of what I'm talking about. Like, I cannot think of an equivalent, and I'm sure there'll be more stuff coming out. I can't wait in like 2060 when my book is adapted by Amazon, Netflix, like the megacorp, and made to sell, like, I don't know, IDF merch or something. So that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.